Today's video is going to be a good one, guys. We're going to be talking about some of the crises that people are not talking. Crises, that might be a better word. We're going to be talking about some of the crises that people are not talking about and some of the things that you're not seeing on the news, but that is going to impact you and impact our economy and the way we look at the world, especially here in America. So today's video is going to be a good one. We're going to be talking about those things that you need to be made aware of, and that video starts right now.
Call it off, let it go.
Good morning, guys. Welcome to the Max. It is raining actually here in South Mississippi. Chores are done and it's gonna be a nasty day. I wish you could have seen it yesterday. We had some cows that were not ours. They come through the property. It was crazy. I should have had a camera out and I didn't. I was just trying to get these cows that were not mine off my property before it caused issues for my cows. So it was a fun, eventful day yesterday, but today's video is going to be one that's sobering and it makes us think a little bit. So let's jump right into it. If you're new to the Max, go down here, press subscribe, ring the bell. Please let us know what you think of this video. Give us a thumbs up or down. We're okay with that, but we do want to know what you think, how you feel about the video, and what kind of content you'd like to see from the Max. So as I said in the intro, today's video is going to be about some of the crises that we are facing, but that the world is facing that will impact us because we're in such a global community. First is easy, it's energy. Let's think about energy just for a second. We have got the prices of energy. Even though people are saying, well, gas has gone down, please don't be that guy. Gas is going down, but it's still dollars and cents way higher per gallon than it was just a few years ago. So we cannot be brainwashed to think, well, gas is going down. We don't want a new normal of higher gas prices. But we have to remember that the petroleum we're getting out of the ground, that people are pretty much dogging us out about, the natural gas that we're getting out of the ground, that people are just saying, you don't need to harvest that. That's to fossil fuels or minerals, whatever you want to call them. They're still coming out of the earth. And we're doing those and we're harvesting and we're providing fuel for us and for a lot of the world in a very safe and environmental way, more than anybody else in the world. So we're living in the same world. So if we're not producing petroleum the cleanest way, then more people are going to be buying from OPEC, are going to be buying from Russia. More people are going to be buying from these countries who necessarily don't like us, but also who is not pulling their fuel out of the ground as clean as us. For a lot of people pushing for our environment, if we're not pumping the fuel, someone else is pumping a dirtier fuel in a more catastrophic way. It's not as clean as the process of what we're doing when we're getting our crude oil out of the ground. So that being said, make sure you understand that because we're not pumping fuel, that doesn't mean the world is not pumping fuel. The world still needs fuel. I don't care what you say, there's still countries that are buying a lot of fuel to provide for their needs. So if we're not pumping it, other people are. We need to make sure that if we're wanting a cleaner petroleum, it needs to be with us doing it, putting a more economic way to fuel the world, and it's also going to be cleaner for the environments because we are trying to do all we can to conserve the environment, unlike maybe Russia or Iran or OPEC or Venezuela. And so back to the green energy. Green energy to me is the term green energy is a farce. And the reason I say that is this. If we're using water, we're using wind, we're using solar, that is green energy. I understand that concept. I love solar. I love the prospect of what solar can be. I love the prospect of what water and wind are. However, because of capabilities, because of where we live, a lot of those things are hard for some folks to be able to do. The northern hemispheres and normal climates, you're not getting solar like maybe Australia or the southwest desert area of America. So we need to figure out better ways to harness those energies if you're wanting it to stay completely green. Another problem with that, just like we are pulling fuel out of the ground, we're pulling those fossil fuels out of the ground. Have you seen as a world how they mine lithium, how they mine uranium, how they mine all these prospects and all these things that are needed to build the batteries and the solar panels? If you go right now and buy a battery for your car or buy any kind of battery, there's warning labels all over them. And also there's charges if you don't bring your other battery to replace it. So say you were changing your car battery out, you get money back if you bring your other battery because they know it's contamination. It's got acid in it. Batteries are not really good for the earth, no more than any other situation that we're doing. So to call that green energy, it is a little bit of a bait and switch there. So I do believe in solar, I do believe in wind and water. However, I think we need to be smarter to realize that is costing an astronomical amount. I would love to have solar for my whole house, but that's impossible unless you are an elitist and have tons of funds. For the common middle class or lower class income folks, solar is not an option. It's not. You may have a generator that can run parts of your home, but it's not an option. Just the battery banks alone are very expensive. Now we're going to be talking about a solar system or a solar generator system that you can run major parts of your house on, and we've got a video coming out next week on that. It's a game changer. However, it can be kind of costly. We're going to be reviewing that, and I think that's a great video you need to keep in mind to watch later. But please understand, I love solar, I love water, I love the things that we're doing with clean energy. However, green and clean are very bad terms. It's no really cleaner than some of the other options that we're doing for energy. But because of that, that's what we want to talk about. We're seeing that because we're taking some of that petroleum that we are normally using for heating and for taking care of our world. You see places like Spain. Spain is not allowing temperatures in your home. They're going through a heat wave in Europe. So like Spain won't allow their residents to go under 80 on their thermostats to conserve energy. China is doing blackouts. They are going across and saying, we're going to mitigate the use of a lot of the energy that you are using. You're not going to be able to do this and that on certain days. Is that the kind of world that we're hoping to have, just to say that we're trying to have a better green approach to things? What we're doing is we're developing a new normal that could come back and haunt us, because the people of this day and time, we've been so used to being able to buy with one click and to have any accessibility that we wanted, to where when you start taking those things away, I believe we're going to see a lot of crisis and a lot of issues, and you're starting to see some of those across our world. Places in Europe, they're going to struggle heating their homes. Also, they're going to struggle with keeping their homes cooler. We're seeing that in America, where because of some of the water issues, because of the energy crisis, and they call it an energy crisis, and we realize that energy is not a crisis now. We're putting our own self in a crisis because we're not pumping enough fuel. Now, if you don't believe in coal fuel, nuclear, or solar, or water, whatever you don't believe in of all those choices, okay, let's work together to innovate new processes. But until we get to that point of making new processes or making these work better, we need to be utilizing all we have. If you want to heal a country or heal a nation, the best thing to do is have money in their pocket, food in their belly, and cheap and clean ways to live. If we live in this common world and we're able to drive and not have a burden of extra petroleum cost or gas prices, if we're able to buy food at a pretty rationed price because it's been provided and we have an abundance of it, if we're able to heat or cool our home because the energy prices are not as bad, those are ways to make people feel comforted. No matter what you thought pre-COVID, we had it pretty good because ultimately we didn't see a lot of these issues right here in front of us. Now we're opening crisis that we're making on ourselves. So energy, it would be number one. We need to make sure that we are either cleaning up. If we're cleaning up and we want clean energy, then we need to develop true clean energy. If we're worried about what it's doing in the environment, we need to be innovative in finding new ways to pull the fossil fuels and the God-given blessings out of the ground. Why don't we use them? If you want us to be more innovative and find ways to do it more clean, let's figure that out. But until then, let's start finding ways to power our batteries and our solar panels without contaminants, and let's find ways to harness more energy from some of the natural resources. But until then, coal, petroleum is not bad. Let's just do it in a cleaner way, and America was doing that more than any other part of the world. Another crisis that is right upon us is we've picked sides on all these wars that we're in, and there's always volatility in our world. But if we look at two groups that we should be honing in and watching, and here we are buying fuel from a lot of these people or importing a lot of their goods. So we have BRICS, B-R-I-C-S. That is a group of countries that is pretty much coalescing, and we're not in it. That's not good. It's kind of like playing basketball or playing dodgeball and you're not the one picked. It's all against you at that point. Same way with the axis of good, quote unquote, the axis of good. So we're going to talk about those right quick. BRICS, that's going to be Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and then we're going to see the axis of good, which is Iran, Turkey, and Russia. If you're familiar with the Bible, as Christians we are, That's almost like a, you know, Gog and Magog kind of situation going on there. So we're looking at two crises where there's two groups of trade partners, two groups of countries that are not in the best situation with America, and they're starting to work together. There was just a report where China and Russia were doing a lot of military drills I think it was last week together. Do we see that? And here we are, we're wanting to buy from the axis of good, Iran. We're wanting to buy fuel from them. Russia is having to provide tons of fuel. All those sanctions didn't do anything. Actually, Russia has gained, their economy has done better since the war started, because now they're providing fuel at a higher cost, because Germany and places like that depend on it. And we see now places like South America. We think of Brazil, we think of South Africa. A lot of those places are now starting to kind of align themselves. In India and China is the most populated areas in the world. BRICS is made up of about 40% of the populace. 25 to 30% of all goods are coming from those countries. So let's think about that for a second. Those groups of people are not liking us. They're putting themselves together, and here we are sitting over here trying to change the world and get better pronouns going across the world here. I'm not saying what America is doing is bad. I'm just saying we need to put our focus back on things that matter. Quit worrying about sending all our billions of tax dollars across the world to fight a war that we're not even in between a bad person and another bad person, or try to give more money out to this world that we really don't have. That's why inflation's here, because we have printed too much money. So we need to be watching what's going on. If we're not careful, the axis of good, which is Russia, and it's putting Iran and Turkey in there, it's allowing Russia a foothold back into the Middle East. Same way with China and the BRICS, they're doing the same thing. Even the Russia's in both groups, which is a little unique. But China's also putting a huge influence back into the Middle East. That's where wars and everything else has started. And then on top of that, South America, South Africa are now joining, and India joining with these what we would consider world powers, and they're not really liking us. So the alignment of powers away from America and trying to take that world power out of America's hands, and to not make us that important, that's really a kick at us, and also a kind of like a slap in the face to America. But we've not done anything as America to show that we're strong anymore. So we need to be careful. That's a crisis other than the energy, because we're not on the energy forefront. We're not providing energy cheaply to Europe or to some of these countries that are needing it. Guess what? Russia's doing that. We're not providing goods anymore, because now China and India are doing that. So what are we? We're just like a sitting lame duck over here in North America, and not doing anything, and just worried about stupid issues that have no bearing on truly these countries who are wanting to dominate the world. America's here to show strength. We don't necessarily have to get in wars. If we're showing a true strength and we're providing all the needs, sometimes not only for us but for the world in a more economic way, then we're becoming the world power. We're becoming the stronghold to kind of shy away from these nations. Because right now they're forming allegiances and alliances that is not really good for America. Lastly, we're going to be talking about the powers that be and how it's pretty much running all that we're doing in our nation. We think about on the financial end with BlackRock. We think of WEF, the World Economic Forum, how they're influencing so much across our nation. We think of some of the elite situations that are happening, and that is what's actually forming America to almost implode. America is too strong across the world to ever have anybody come and just pick on us. But because we're imploding, because we're fighting and we're infighting and we're destroying ourselves, because we're so polarized, it's making us look very weak. Ultimately, will allow these nations to come in and do what they want with us, and it will make our dollar weaker. The point of BRICS, the point of axis of good, the point of those alliances is making our dollar weaker. It's making our petrodollar weaker. They're starting to work on a different currency. Saudi Arabia, who is one of the biggest oil providers, because we're not choosing to do anything about it, they're selling a lot of their oil not based on the petrodollar. They're starting to take other forms of currency, which will come and haunt us, because it's actually going to hurt our dollar over time. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon. Now, he's not something, I don't like JP Morgan Chase. I don't like a lot of these big banks that are tied into the Fed. But ultimately, even he is saying that the economy looks strong. However, we're looking for a major recession and something that may be even worse than a recession. He called it a financial hurricane, if I'm not mistaken. So we need to make sure that we're putting our eyes on some of these crises, because right now we're still a strong nation. But if all of a sudden we see these nations causing issues, our goods causing issues, our inflation causing issues, and then we start seeing how our dollar is now depleting, we're not only having shortages, we're going to have a financial crisis. As we try to control the inflation, we start raising rates. The feds are raising rates, which will ultimately slow down the market. It's slowed down the market. It's slowed down the real estate market in America. It's very strong still, but it is starting to waver a little bit. We need to be careful of that. We're being influenced by people like World Economic Forum who wants you to eat crickets. Are you really going to eat crickets? You know what? I honestly believe majority of America and majority of the world will end up eating crickets. Why? Why will they end up eating crickets when they're like, oh no, we're not going to do that? Because you're dependent on the government to provide all your needs. It's hard to afford beef when it's costing $10 to $15 to $20 a pound. So all of a sudden, if this cheap protein comes in and people are like, oh, let's take it. They're making powders out of it. They're making flours out of it. And it seems like everybody's saying this is clean. So why are we not utilizing this cricket powder? I'm not saying crickets are bad for you. If you want to eat crickets, I don't care if you eat crickets or not. But to say that I'm going to instill that you have to eat beef, or I have to instill that you're going to eat chicken, or I'm going to instill that you're going to eat crickets, that's where the liberty and freedom problem comes in. I have no problem with you eating crickets. If you want to eat crickets, by all means, go eat crickets. But it should not be the government or an elitist mentality or World Economic Forum saying that you can't eat beef. You have to eat crickets. If you don't want to eat meat, I'm okay with that. You not wanting to eat meat should not affect me wanting to eat meat. You want to eat, vegan food or impossible meats that Bill Gates is making, or you hear all these things pushed by the UN and by WEF, I'm all for you. Jump on that bandwagon. However, at the same time, as the freedoms and liberties we have and the freedoms and liberties you have, you should be able to do that. We should be able to do other things. And as long as we're not harming you, we should be able to eat our beef without somebody dogging us out for eating beef. So we see energy issues, we see food issues, we see power grab issues across the world. We need to be better than that as America. We're so polarized right now that we can't even look strong across the world. Even with issues that we've always had as America, we tend to always look strong. We had strength provided across the world. We're not there anymore. We need to really find common ground. And the common ground is liberty and freedom. We should not worry about complaining about oil and how we can't pump it out here when you're still using the cars to do it. Everyone can't afford a Tesla. Everyone can't afford to put solar on their house. All that's good stuff. It's really good. But it's out of touch for a lot of people. Until it is able to be innovated to be more economic for a lot of us, we need to make sure that we are making other options like the fuel that we already have, that we're already used to using. Make it more clean, make it more energy efficient, make it more environmentally safe. I don't care. I mean, we can do all that. We need to provide economic energy for people, because then that way they're not struggling. Then it allows them to spend more money on their food. They can go out and grab their food. It allows the farmers to farm it cheaper. Everything, it's just like dominoes. If we see the issues that we're having, we're not making it any easier. So we have to figure out, these crises are right in front of us. The power grabs are right in front of us. The food issues are right in front of us. The energy is right in front of us. We need to be developing solutions to these things. Now, I will give you a little hope. For pre-COVID homeschooling, we homeschool our kids, was less than 3% of America homeschooled. It just was not very common. And because kids had to go home, I think a lot of parents realized this is doable. I think a lot of parents realized sometimes the teachers are not teaching true education and arithmetic. They're teaching indoctrination, which will provide for more polarization as we get older and more crises in America. Now, where it was 3%, around 20% of people now are homeschooling their children. That's great. That is encouraging. 1/5 of America is starting to homeschool their children or have some kind of form of home education. Kids will learn from you more than anything, and you can impact your children way more than what our government can, way more than any other teacher can. You can be the change. You could be the solution. A lot of the issues that we're having is because we're so indoctrinated, and we're watching just this mainstream news that tells us what we should know and what we should hear, and we're just indoctrinated by that. We're not really building a true wise decision-making capabilities. I know a lot of you, and I'll get bad comments for this, say, well, it's too late. There's no help. All people everybody's against us in the government. Look, I'm not one of those people. I know there's evil. World Economic Forum, I believe, is doing evil things. UN is doing evil things. I believe we are overloaded with bad politicians that are worried about their own self and their narcissistic beliefs, because ultimately term limits would solve a lot of that. But there are good people, and we have to vote for the best people and quit listening to their one-liners and these political pundits and start really looking at the person and the value of the person. Quit being fake. And politicians, quit being fake. You need to be real. Guys, gain wisdom, see these crises that are in front of you, and prepare your family. You may not can fix a lot of these issues, but you can stockpile. You can take care of your family. You can teach your kids. You can gain wisdom and build true knowledge. You can build a better America, but it takes us working together and quit letting news cycles and media and politicians put us against each other. Because guess what that does? When the people are against each other, you're allowing those people to always rain down on you and be over you. When we're working together, then all of a sudden we can make change at the top. As I say in most videos that we end with, Jesus is the key. We need repentance. We need revival in this area of America. Definitely. But it starts with us too. It starts with us. We need to be better than what we're being. And that will help us not have the crisis that we're having, and not relying on the government who does not have our best interests at heart. And I promise you are not doing things in a morally obligated way. Guys, hope this video helps. Hope it opens your eyes. Leave me a comment below. Tell me what you think of this video. Tell us what you think of some of these other crises that are going on. I really like reading what you're leaving down here. So leave me a comment. I try to reply. I know I read them all, but I try to reply to all of them as I can. But please, be safe, be free. God bless. Happy homesteading, y'all.